Christian parenting.
Hey Mama, I'm Pamela Hinkleman, and you're listening to the Midlife Mama Podcast, the show for Christian moms who want to let go with grace and actually enjoy their empty nest. I'm a certified empty nest coach, speaker, and mom of 5 grown kids. I know the challenges this season brings, from letting go to setting healthy boundaries to rediscovering your purpose and reconnecting with your husband. Each week, I'll be your guide, offering heartfelt conversations, faith-filled encouragement, and practical strategies to help you thrive in this next chapter. My husband and I are loving the empty nest years, and I have strong, growing relationships with my adult kids, and I want the same for you. Don't miss the end of each episode. I'll share a quick coaching tip you can apply right away to improve your relationship with your kids or your spouse. One favor before we dive in. If you find this episode helpful, would you leave a rating and review? It helps other moms discover the show. There's a link in the show notes with instructions. Make sure you're following the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Now, let's get started. Welcome back to the Midlife Mama Podcast, the place for faith, friendship, and real talk for empty nest moms. If you've ever had a grown child move away, you know the bittersweet ache that follows. You're proud of the independent adult they've become, but the quiet moments can hit hard, especially when they live in another time zone. How do you stay close when daily life no longer overlaps? Today, I'm joined by Joanne McHugh, the creator of Things Your Mom Should Have Told You, an online newsletter full of honest, heartfelt wisdom for moms. Joanne knows firsthand what it's like to navigate long-distance relationships with adult kids, and she's learned how faith, flexibility, and intentionality can bridge the miles. Together, we'll talk about accepting the move, building meaningful rhythms of connection, and finding comfort in God's presence, even when the distance feels wide. So grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and let's lean into this tender topic together. Welcome, Joanne.
Hello, Pamela. Thanks
So
for
glad.
having me.
Well, so glad to have you here. This is such an important topic. I know when moms read the titles, they're going to go, "Oh, that's me. That's me."
Yeah, it's a
Sure.
very common predicament we find ourselves in. Yeah.
I think sometimes one we never wanted or imagined, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, Joanne, when your first adult child first moved away, what emotions came up for you and how did you process that transition? And what helped you accept the reality that this was their next right step?
Well, I would say, first of all, I was kind of like lulled into a false sense of security because both my oldest daughter and my middle child had chosen a university that was within 20 miles of home. So it was really
Oh,
very easy. It was easy for them to come home for a quick visit. Didn't feel the sense of distance. We were still in the same
right.
metropolitan area. And then my oldest daughter, as she was preparing to graduate from college, and this was actually just as the pandemic was beginning, she was part of the class of 2020. Just as so many families were having grown kids return to the nest in the face of the pandemic, she announced that she was looking for a job that would allow her to move to Manhattan. And we actually live just outside of Philadelphia. So not super far away, but
Uh-huh.
far enough away to kind of be striking. And I couldn't imagine how it was that what was she thinking of moving
Yes.
outside of the 30-mile radius that I had drawn around in my head around the family homestead? How could she go and do this? And I had at least the good sense not to express any of these things out loud. And of course, even though I didn't express them out loud, I'm sure she knew that my preference would have been for her to stay closer to home. But, it was a matter of like doing one of those things that we get so good at once we are the moms of grown children, which is kind of accepting that it's
Yes.
their life to live. And I think the thing I always try to remind myself when I struggle is that if God gives us free will and lets us make our choices about like, if God grants free will, then I kind of have to do the same. So that's kind of my
Ooh.
fallback, especially when it's a bad day, right?
Yes. Yeah, I love that. That's a beautiful perspective. If God gives us free will, then maybe we should give our kids that too. Honestly. So acceptance then was It sounds like it wasn't that difficult for you. That's
No,
amazing.
no, it was hard. Like, sometimes, you fantasize about like, what could I do? We still have, I'm sentimental, so we still have some of the old, Fisher Price toys in the basement or whatever. And there's like the Fisherware, like Go Anywhere girls that my kids had. And I'm like, if only we could turn it into the Don't Go Anywhere girls, like voodoo type of thing, and cast the spell, make them stay. But of course that would have been wrong.
Right.
And you had to respect it. Luckily, I had a little bit of a break where, she didn't move right away. We kind of had the summer together, and then she moved in September. And I would say, as I've often found in adjusting to some of the parenting things of the letting go, sometimes it's worse imagining how it's going to be than when you actually like live through it, because, you tend to imagine like the worst case scenario. And, she had thought everything through. She had a wonderful roommate. She had found a good job, so, everything was set up, and it was just, okay, she lived 2 hours away. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I think one of the mistakes that I made, or like the mistaken thought that I had, was that our closeness was a function of physical proximity. And if
Yes.
it's important to
Yes.
you that you wanna be close to your adult children, you know, you could think, "Well, that depends on how close they are. Can I see them every week or whatever?" And that's a fallacy, I think. Like, yes, we can desire being able to see them fairly routinely or whatever, but that closeness really comes from a lot more things like communication and mutual respect. When you do have the opportunity to be together to, spend that time doing something that, you'll both enjoy or that the family will enjoy. So it wasn't really, the closeness wasn't a function of physical proximity.
Oh, that's so important because we can have kids that live 20 minutes away and have such emotional distance that we don't know what to do with. So you're
Right.
right. It's not even about the physical distance. Our first child went to college 4 hours away, and he went from a small rural town to a huge metropolitan city. So it just felt like so many big jumps for him, but
Yeah.
we knew it was what he wanted and we trusted that he would thrive there. And it was that way with our daughter when she wanted to go 7 hours away. We're like, oh, when we went on the visit, I said, I know she's going to love it. I just know she's going to love
Yeah.
it here.
Right.
And she just floated through the day. And we both knew by the end of the day that that is where is going to end up, and you know what? She ended up staying there for, was it 8 years?
Okay. Wow.
She finished college, she got married, she started her career, and then when it was time to build a family, she wanted to move back closer, and so
Right.
she did, but
Yeah.
8 years. But
It's a long time.
yeah,
Although it
but
probably went fast in
yeah,
retrospect,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but we are emotionally very close, just like we were when she was home, so I love
Right.
that point, that's very important. So I think that sometimes long distance relationships with our kids require creativity. So, what are some intentional ways that you stay emotionally close even when you can't be physically present? What does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the key ways, and it's funny because I was thinking about it the other day of like what things are like when I was the college student versus, kids nowadays in college. And back then, like maybe there was like a phone call once a week or something on the dorm phone that was out in the hallway.
Yes.
But now, with how things have shifted with the availability of texting, like yes, there are a lot of downsides to everybody having their smartphone or whatever, but don't underestimate the power of the family group chat. I think
Yes.
that is a tremendous channel of communication, even if you're not sure what to say or how, if you're uncertain about how what you have to say will be received. A picture of the family dog, the cat curled up or whatever, always, it's always welcomed, let's say.
Yes.
It's a chance for you and, their brothers and sisters to kind of like check in of what's going on, just like routine, or, photos of what you're doing that particular day. I think that that's a tremendous method of communication that we had nothing like that available.
Yeah, I agree. I think my family text thread is probably one of my favorite places because it's where all the family lore lives on.
Absolutely, yeah.
All the inside jokes, all the teasing about the same things when they were younger. It just never ends, and it's my favorite. And now we've added their spouses to it too, so
Nice.
it's
You're
a
right.
lot of people. Now there's
Yeah.
some of them who prefer to remain a little quiet, and that's fine. You
Yeah.
get to
They're
choose. You
right,
get to
right.
choose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, but I
Yeah.
think that that's one way. And I think the other thing, I didn't think about this at first, but here's like one of like the built-in benefits of having a child live away at a distance is that when they do come home for a visit, it's usually a longer visit. And especially if they're staying over in your house, there's great potential for that to turn into something like a sleepover party.
Yes.
It's great. It's nice. And I probably end up spending more time with my kids than I would if they lived in the same metro, because if they
Exactly.
might come home for an afternoon or for dinner or whatever, but then they would go
Right.
back to their place.
Right.
So, those are just like wonderful times to play a game or you're gonna watch a movie together or pull out old photos or video from when they were younger. And
Right.
I think
Right.
that's a tremendous way to kind of like connect and reconnect with them.
I love that. When my daughter was away at college, 7 hours away, we had a scheduled Sunday afternoon call, and she
Okay.
would just fill me in on her life. And I would listen. It wasn't even about me having to solve anything for her. I was just there to listen, to hear, to let her process, to encourage her and cheer her on. I still can't believe that I let her drive across the country by herself, back and
Wow.
forth, and
Uh-huh.
it just terrifies me.
Right.
I would
Right.
pray. I would pray her home. I'm like, "What time you leaving?"
Yeah. Yep.
Oh
But
gosh.
but I think that that's one of the things too, again, like kind of one of the hidden blessings of if your child moves to a new city and they have to figure out how to like navigate it on their own and they have to, all the things that they find out about the city, like places that they want to share with you when you come to visit or whatever. And if you have the opportunity to just see how they go and they set up a whole life for themselves somewhere.
Yeah.
I mentioned the oldest daughter moved to Manhattan. The second daughter then, and when she graduated, moved to Orlando because her dream had always been to work for Disney, so she went and
Oh.
did that. And then my youngest, we actually just a few weeks ago dropped her off to begin vet school over in London. So now so now I have somebody who is 3,544 miles away. So I'm not who's counting or anything, but it, I don't know. So, she's a 7-hour plane ride away.
Yes.
It's difficult, and you taking her over there to help her get settled, and anytime you would no matter where you would leave your child, when I left the other 2 at college 20 miles from home, there's a certain grief that you
Mhm.
feel. But I would say the other positive to come out of it is when we were navigating our way around to go and get her what she needed to get settled in her new living space and everything is she was the one who was doing the navigating of like, "Oh, we've gotta get on the tube, but if we go to this station to get there," and just realizing how capable she was,
Yes.
and thinking to myself, all of those things that we tried to do when she was growing up to enable her to be able to do that and, achieve what she wanted to achieve, like, that was part of us doing our job as parents. So, in some ways, ironically, I'm like, "I enabled this that she's able to go this far from home."
Yeah.
But that, in the end, wasn't that what we all hoped for? Like, that was us doing our job. So there was, like, a certain sense of satisfaction of, like, "All right, mission accomplished, like, here we are, this will be an adjustment for us and for her. This was, where it was supposed to be headed."
Yes, I love that. Seeing that you actually equipped her to be
Yeah.
independent, to be able to find her way around a city she had never probably been to. So how does it work with the time differences and your communication? How do you do that?
Well, I mean, we're still learning.
Yeah.
It's a 5-hour time difference, so we
Okay.
have to be mindful, my husband and I are probably gonna connect with her tonight around dinner time, which will be just before she goes to bed. There's some
Okay.
learnings with that, and we'll FaceTime her, which will give us a
Yes.
chance to, see one another, a chance for her to, see the family pets and everything else. we're working that out, and we're trying to figure out, like, how does it work if, we wanna send her a care package. So, like, there will be logistics to figure out and, how will it work for her coming home for the holidays and all. There are things, but you'll work it out. Like, there's a learning curve for sure, but, it's very manageable. The other thing I think in terms of trying to have a sense of perspective about it, when you think of what the world was like, 50 years or 100 years ago, we didn't have as many communication options as we do today. So it really is easier to stay in closer contact than it would have been before.
I love what you said. You said it's manageable.
Mhm.
And I think that's really a good story for moms to tell themselves, like, this distance is manageable. We can do it because our child has desired it. This is their dream. This is their wish. This is their life. And our
Mhm.
job is to support them in that. So to
Right.
be anything other than supportive is really a disservice to your relationship.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I wanna know, so is she's coming home for the holidays, and then the other thing is you have great places to visit. You get to go to
Oh, yeah.
London.
No, we found that with the other 2 too. I mean, with having some, as I said, my middle daughter went and worked for Disney, so it was a chance to free admission tickets to they have their
Yeah,
passes that we visited the Disney parks, and just to have more of the perspective of a little bit of a peek behind the scenes, or, it was just something interesting to see that you might not otherwise have had a chance to see. With my oldest up in New York, certainly there are many parts of we had certainly been to New York before, but there were lots of parts of the city that we hadn't seen before that we got a
yeah,
chance to experience,
yeah,
or just even, apartment living in very, very small quarters and how that all worked, and that wasn't something that we were used to either, but seeing, how she figured that out and navigated it. And we've always lived in the suburbs, so the idea of the existence without a car, and that was a facet of life that she had to adapt to. So you do learn, and you see other parts of the country. When you go there, you have, like, a very knowledgeable guy that's willing and happy to take you around and show you things that they think you'll enjoy. So it does offer a lot of opportunities for family bonding and
I
family
love that.
travel.
Yeah. My friend Susie Mile, who wrote Empty Nest Blessed, she says that one of the best things you can do is to get on your kids' turf and experience their life. So just follow them around, see what
Right.
it's like. I mean, I think going to London with your daughter and she shows you all the things and her favorite place to shop and her favorite restaurants and where she works, like what a gift. That's
Yeah, no, it is, and it is a gift, and, you don't wanna get lost and, like, not see that because you're so caught up, again, on the idea of, like, the physical distance. So
yes. Hey, Mama, if your house feels too quiet and your heart feels too heavy after launching your child, I've created a guide just for you. It's called Journaling Through Transitional Grief, a gentle, faith filled resource to help you process the deep emotions of letting go. Inside, you'll find 6 reflection questions that will help you name your feelings, invite God into the grief, and experience His comfort in the middle of change. Remember, transitional grief is only a season, and God is leading you toward peace, purpose, and joy. You can grab your free copy at the link in the show notes. Now, let's get back to our conversation. So, how has your faith played a role in just helping you get through releasing control and trusting God with your child's life, especially when you can't see them or step in right away when they need something?
yeah, I think the one thing that I first grounded myself with was thinking, if and I really believe that God has a plan for my life, just like He has a plan for your life, and then I also believe He has a plan for each of my daughters' lives. So, unfortunately, however, or I would say unfortunately on the face of it, but however he has it structured, if they are called to be someplace else, then they're called to be someplace else, and that's part of his plan. You can't help but question sometimes, but if you are a person of faith and you believe in that, you kind of have to accept that the plans may not intersect for a while, but there's a reason
Yes.
for it.
Yeah, I
So
love that. I
so
think
that
we can it's good to just trust God to know that his plans are higher than ours. I realize this. As I was raising my kids, I didn't ever once think about the days when they would not be around. I don't know, it just wasn't in my vision. Maybe because you were so focused on
yeah,
raising
you
these
other
5
things.
kids.
Mhm.
So when we got to that phase where we were all in 4 different states. I think one season we were in 5 different states, the 7 of us, and I was like, I never imagined that
Yeah,
it would be like this, and yet it is, and it is good, and it was, and so this acceptance and this trusting that this is God's plan, this is God's
right.
will for families, and it's okay. It's
Well,
good.
the other thing that I think about or I meditate on is just the idea I think sometimes about how it was for Mary at the wedding feast of Cana.
Mhm.
And really, in a lot of ways, she precipitated what happened in terms of making our Lord aware that there was a need there. And, you have to wonder what was Mary thinking? Like, she had to have a sense that if she encouraged Jesus to begin his public ministry, there she
Mm.
knew that could possibly mean that he'd be leaving the village,
Yeah.
he would be called on and moving on to greater things.
Right.
And I
Right.
think about that a lot because, in a way, when once your child reaches adulthood and they are called to go and follow whatever path
Mhm.
is their path, sometimes that does mean them moving away from you. But
Exactly.
that's part of the plan, just like Mary kinda had to let go and, in fact, had to be the one who was like, "Hey, it's time." That's how it works.
Yeah, that's what we can do too, and we can partner with the Lord in it. I love so many moms wrestle with disappointment when calls are short or visits are infrequent. How do you manage expectations without resentment? And what rhythms have worked for your family? Have you ever faced that? Disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, the one thing that strikes me is you said about expectations, and there's that quote that says, "Expectations are resentments under construction."
Yeah.
So, like, I try to just as much as I can to, like, let go and be free of an expectation. It's
Mhm.
difficult because it's human nature, like, we all kinda
Mhm.
have ideas how we would like to see things unfold, but
Mhm.
that's kind of acceptance is it's kind of like the skill to develop, so I think that that's the thing to kind of, like, loosely hold your expectations, I would say, for one thing, and then, beyond that, I've found it usually works best if you can let your child kind of ideally, let them set the tempo of the communication, because I've
Mm.
noticed even among my 3 daughters, each of them kinda has a different, like, preferred frequency in terms of how often they
Yes.
interact. It's not a blanket thing or you could think, "Oh, well, we'll all we're from the same family, we're used to the same
Yes.
dynamics." But there's, like, a different cadence, and I would say even though there's a different cadence, it's not as though I feel like you're necessarily closer to one child than the other, but I think kind of, like, leaving with them just kind of protects you maybe from a little bit of the resistance that might otherwise ensue if you're, "Well, I expect to hear from you every weekend."
Yeah. Yes. I couldn't agree with you more. I have 5 kids, and our level of communication is vastly different,
Mhm,
and I have to be okay with it. I am okay with it because that's just how they're wired, that's how they're made, that's the
mhm.
phase they are in life, and so it really helps us not to be resentful.
Yeah.
Acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. And you said the key thing was letting your child lead. It's not the tempo that I set for the child, it's the tempo they set and
Mhm,
what they need in the relationship. Some
mhm.
of my kids don't need to talk more than once a month. Some of my kids, I talk several times a week. So
Right.
it's
Or it's situational too. Someone's
situational.
going through something or whatever, like,
Mhm.
there's just, there's more interaction
Mhm.
depending on what's going on in the family, somebody's ill
Mhm.
or there's
Yeah.
a greater frequency of communication. I think the biggest thing that helps with that too is if, you know, sometimes it helps to step back and not take it personally. Like, it's
Yeah.
not a personal affront to you if you don't hear from them all the time. And probably,
Yes.
even if you checked with some of if there's a child that doesn't communicate with you as frequently, and you check with the siblings who you maybe do hear from, like that, they may not hear from their sibling as frequently either. So
Right,
I think
right.
that you don't want to fall for the lie of like, oh, it's just you, just you. Like
Exactly. Yep. Don't take things
it may
personally.
not be you. Yeah.
Right, right. So many good tidbits today. What encouragement would you give to the mom who's struggling right now, whose adult child just moved far away and she feels like the miles are stealing her connection? What can she do?
Yeah. I think the first thing is to kind of just acknowledge it, and you have to let the pain be there. Like, don't you can't pretend it away. So
Mhm.
in some ways you may be grieving for a season of life, that's now shifted into a different stage. I think it helps to be gentle with yourself, to remind yourself that it won't always be this way. It will evolve. Your relationship will evolve. Your comfort level will evolve with this new like stage in your life and their life. So just kind of give it some time. We often desire quick fixes,
Yes.
turnarounds, and it doesn't always work like that.
Yeah.
So if you can just have a little bit of patience, I think too, part of it is like us adjusting to like our new season in life. It isn't just the fact that they moved away. Like it's hard to give up the role of a lifetime, right? Being
Mhm.
a parent, yes, it's a lot of work when you're in the trenches, but it's also in many respects the greatest job you'll ever have. So it's natural to feel some grief or regret about the fact that that's coming to an end. But if you can kinda get past that, it also opens up other opportunities. It's you moving into a different stage of your life, and you probably now have more time. You may have more say so. You may not feel as compelled as you have felt for the past 20, 25 years, 30 years of your you were all probably always giving priority to your family responsibilities. So now you do have a time to go back and look at what what interests did you put up on the shelf because you were so busy with all of your other responsibilities you didn't have time for that. Or maybe there's other people, maybe you have elderly relatives yourself and they can benefit from more of your time and attention
Mhm.
now too. There's other people in your community, just your caregiving responsibilities have shifted, but it doesn't mean that there's not something. I'm sure God has other things on his to-do list
Yes.
for you. So it's just a
Yes.
matter of sorting out what it might be.
Yeah, I love that. God's not done with us yet. This is the beginning of a whole new wonderful season.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I love the empty nest. I think it's beautiful.
I think the other thing is too, I realized is, we had several years together, my husband and I, before the kids came along, and I really loved that season. I don't know why it took me, several years to think of 'em like, "Hey, this is kinda like that again." It's not exactly the
Exactly.
same.
No,
We're
you just
different
have more
ages.
money.
Right, it's a different season, but, like, yeah,
Yeah,
some of the things we used to enjoy doing before we had the responsibility of children, it's kinda like that again, so that's nice.
that's right. Well, that's awesome. Joanne, I want to thank you for being here. If you could please let my listeners know where they can find your work online and then a helpful resource you have for them.
Okay. You can find out more about what I'm up to. I have a website called thingsyourmomshouldhavetold you.com. And what I do is I offer wit and wisdom for people who are navigating young adulthood. So everything from the big picture of figuring out how to build a meaningful life for yourself, to dealing with the different types of dilemmas that crop up when in your 20s. And if you go to thingsyourmomshouldhavetold you.com, you can sign up for a weekly newsletter that either, you can enjoy, or of course you could always share it with your kids, and hopefully it will help give them some guidance for navigating the road ahead.
Wonderful. I will leave that link in the show notes. Well, what a rich conversation with Joanne. I love how she reminded us that really it's about accepting God's design, plan, and call on your child's life, and that He's not done with you. You can still have connection even when your kids are far away. Here's your coaching tip of the week. In each episode, I will give you one actionable step to improve your life. Remember, you can't change everything, but you can take one step to be better. This week, I want you to try one thing you can do as a way to connect with your child long distance. Maybe it's send them a note. Maybe it's just hop on the phone and say, "Hey, do you have time that you want to talk?" And remember, let them lead it. Don't get upset if they're not available. Remember, they set the tone. Mama, if your grown child lives far away, take heart. The same God who guided them to this new chapter is guiding you too. You don't have to fill every moment to fix every feeling. Just stay rooted in love and let God do what only He can do. If this episode encouraged you, share it with another mom who's missing her kids today. Until next time, grace and peace, Mama. You've got this, and God's got you. Thanks for spending time with me on the Midlife Mama podcast. I hope you leave each episode feeling a little more encouraged, equipped, and seen, because that's what this space is all about. Through the stories, insights, and conversations we share here, I'm coaching you through the ups and downs of the empty nest, helping you rediscover purpose, deepen faith, and enjoy this new season of life. If you're ready for an even more personalized support, I'd love to invite you to book a free connection call. The link is in the show notes, and we'll talk about how I can walk alongside you as your coach. And let's stay connected. Follow me on Instagram at @PHinkelman. That's PHENKELMAN. Or come find me on Facebook at Pamela Hinkelman, Empty Nest Coach. You don't have to figure this all out on your own, Mama. I'm here for you when you're ready.